Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another Friday in the TEFL Development Hub. We've got another fantastic session coming up this morning, the first of three this month. We've got 5 Fridays in October, which is great. So I've got three of them set up for sessions. So a topic, again, one that we haven't explored so much in the TEFL Development Hub, the idea of English as an additional language. So we're going to get some extra help with that this morning from our fabulous speaker, Jane Maria Harding da Rosa. Jane, thank you so much
Mm.
for joining us.
Hi, thank you. It's lovely to be here.
And I mean, I'm really excited to hear about this framework that you're going to introduce us to. Never mind the fact that it's called which just
Mm.
sounds fantastic. I think it's just, as I said in my LinkedIn post, it's just what we should be doing to with our students anyway, exposing them to language, helping them use it, and getting them using it
Absolutely.
in a personalized way.
And it's just getting it, it's just thinking about it in a different way, isn't it? That makes us, yeah, that helps do all of that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Fantastic. Okie dokie. Well, I will pass the floor over to you. I know
I
you've got
will.
some slides to share with us.
I have. Here we go. Oops, I haven't pressed the share button. Is that all right?
Perfect.
Okay. So, thank you very much, Teresa. So as I said, my name is Maria Harding da Rosa, and I've recently set up my new sort of business venture, which is Enriching English Language Teaching. And this is specifically for um, teachers who have got EAL learners. However, as I do come from an ELT background, a lot of what I'm saying is very relevant to English language teaching as well. Um, so yes, we've got the MMM, and I'm going to take you through from how it works from classroom and teacher development, and why it's really important. I think it's sometimes you need a framework because teachers are so busy and they're trying to juggle quite a lot, and particularly teachers who have got EAL learners or teaching content that they're trying to think about all of these things. So having a framework does offer some clarity and structure to a lesson. So we're going to have a look at these three areas. So it's about language teaching and then content teaching and also teacher training. So just as a quick overview of what that MMM stands for, it's not M&M's, MMM. It's meet, manipulate, make it your own. So it's kind of a nice little loopy cycle as well, because one stage builds from the other and it can actually loop back, which we'll find out soon as well, how it goes back into itself as well. It's simple, it's adaptable, which is really important, particularly because when you're planning lessons and you're looking through course books or you're doing something, you're the course book's not written exactly for your students or for you or your teaching situation. You've got to do something with it. And I think that's kind of where we've got this meet idea and meeting it perhaps in a course, but you've got to manipulate all of that material as well and make it your own so that the students feel like, yes, this is your lesson and it's their lesson. It's not just the course book lesson. Okay, so that's kind of our starting point. I do also want to point out that I haven't invented this myself, and I first came across it in the book called the Primary English Teacher's Guide. As you can see, it's well thumbed. I mean, this is back in the 80s, but there was a section in here, and it was about and it says that it's from the University of Nottingham ITE team. So I've tried to find out more about it, where that came from, but I'm claiming it now. I can definitely say that I've made it my own through lots of manipulation. Um, okay, so this is what it means in terms of language teaching, where you'd get the learners to meet new language. You're then going to get them to manipulate it in some way so that when they leave that classroom, they have this sense of belonging about the language. They've made it their own. You've got to do something as well. And I feel like this last section is often the section that gets missed off. We do a lot of meeting, we do a lot of manipulating in the class, but unless you do something to help them get this ownership of language, you're back to square one, really. So that's what it all stands for in the language. But we'll take a look in a bit more detail as well. So like I say, meeting new language is the way that this language is introduced. And it can be through any way. With young learners, I think it's, even games, don't save games as a reward at the end. You can use it at the beginning to get motivated, to introduce new language, whether they're matching pictures or doing something with it or chanting. But it doesn't have to be, your games and things don't have to just be at the end. They can be at the beginning and used to introduce new language. It's got to be comprehensible. They've got to understand what it is. And now that might be a very simple way of doing something. Don't keep them in the dark about it, about what this new language means. Make sure it's comprehensible, it's interesting, that they're using all of their different senses as well, or as many of them as possible. And again, we'll come into that a little bit later. Most importantly, that you have got the language in a context. Yeah, it's not just random words. They've got to know, and that kind of links into this comprehensible bit, but the context is really important. And part of meeting new language would be to go through the meaning, form, and pronunciation, as you would normally do. And you might say, oh, well, this is, a bit similar to the PPP. Yes, we've got your presentation at the beginning. But that implies much more teacher-centeredness, whereas the meet is very much learner-centered. They're meeting, they're doing something in order to meet it. That's engaging that way. Okay, I'll move on. I hope you have some questions. So then we'll move into the manipulating stage of language. And this bit is where you really need to give them ideas and have activities that they can play with the language somehow. They're going to be changing it, adding, taking away, looking at it, noticing tasks. Again, you might think, oh, it's a bit like the practice stage where you've got your controlled activities. And it is, but again, it's more learner-centered than that. You need to support the learners, obviously, in this manipulation stage. They're just getting familiar with it. And then you gradually guide them through into less controlled things, more into sort of a bit more freer practice, if you want to call it that. But very much personalizing it and getting the learners to look at this language, work with it, play with it, hear it, say it, chant it, getting really, really familiar with how it works and everything that goes with it.
Oh, sorry to
They
interrupt.
need,
It's
yeah.
interesting when you were talking before about course books,
Mhm.
because I feel like with young learners, and this is in an ELT context, they have so much more exposure to the language in a unit of a course book. And I've noticed it now, like preparing students for standardized exams like the Cambridge FCE. The
Mm.
grammar is so much more complex, and they see it for kind of one page in a unit. And so I think,
Yeah.
like you're saying, we as teachers, we need to be providing a lot more opportunity for learners to manipulate the language, to practice it a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I just don't think you can have too much of this,
Hmm. Hmm.
and even if you've got sort of a mixed ability or you need to differentiate, then there's no should be no limit to what they're doing in this stage.
Hmm.
They should never feel that they've finished.
Yeah. I've learned the past simple now. That's
Yeah,
done.
that's it. Or they've just got to the end of the unit page or the workbook page, and therefore that's it. There's so much more that they can do in rewriting the sentences, putting it into sentences about themselves or their family. There's loads of ways of helping them do that, helping them work out spelling rules, for example, when adding endings like ed or ing, how the spelling changes in the middle if they're dropping these, getting them to work all of that out in the things rather than just learning it. Um, so you want to get them, yeah, doing something with it, not just a gap fill exercise. But if you're doing a gap fill exercise, then it needs to be, looking at why it is and what happens if you rearrange those words. How can you write the same sentence using the word that you've put in the gap, but changing it around? Really sort of getting in a bit deeper than just, oh, we're doing a gap fill. Um, asking them to use the vocabulary that they've thought of with a different collocation or um, making up a different rap or a chant, which is like, I'm quite into chants, as you might have seen. But getting them to change it quite significantly if need be. It doesn't matter as long as they're doing something, working with it. And I think through this manipulation, they do get this ownership and they start making it their own. Um, and again, you'll probably say, well, oh, this is like the productive stage of a PPP lesson. But again, I think it's a lot more personalized about it, getting them to work in pairs and groups, making sure that there's a really clear communicative purpose. They're not just having these conversations that don't mean anything that are demonstration conversations where they're doing it to show the teacher that they can say everything. No, they've got to make sure that there's a real communicative purpose and a task behind these things. And this emphasis should be on conveying the meaning of it, whether it's in spoken or written. There's an audience or there's a purpose behind it. Um, you can't expect them to use the language perfectly. I think that would be unrealistic. But at the end of the lesson, you want them to walk out the door and feel that they have ownership of some or most of the language that you've studied in that lesson. That it belongs to them. And with that sense of belonging, they should then be able to share. They've got it so much that they now want to share it and use it and be able to use it. So it's um yeah, getting them to feel like it all belongs to them.
Because I'm a tutor on the Trinity Dip TESOL courses,
Mhm.
and there are loads of criteria for the lesson evaluations. But one of the must-pass criteria is genuine and meaningful communication between learners. And I think, that's what's I mean, it's one of the reasons it's a must-pass criteria that they're not just learning the language because it's the next grammar point or something. They need to be able to use that language to talk
Yeah,
about their own lives, their own experiences.
yeah, and something. Yeah, one of the things that used to really annoy me with children's course books was when they would learn to say, "Oh, hello, what's your name? My name is, my age is, how old are you?" All of those things, the general things. And they're having these conversations with children who have been in their class for the same length of time. They know everything about each other already. They know how many brothers and sisters they've got and where they live and all of this. And it's such a meaningless conversation. It's just a demonstration one. And with a very, very quick activity that you can do would be just to get them to, and I'll just do it quickly, draw a little face on their finger, and you've got an instant puppet. And you tell them, just look at your finger, give it a name, how old is it, how many brothers, and then just get them to have little conversations with each other as that character. And now you've got a clear communicative purpose, practicing that language, but And doing it more than once, not just doing it with the person sitting next to them. Go to somebody else, have, and the more times they do it, because we don't just have those conversations once in real life, but the more they do it, the more the character develops, and it's, they really get invested, and it's, oh, it's really sad now, or whatever, it's that's a um, absolutely. If you've got 5 minutes at the end of a lesson, that's what you should do, is just stick on a finger and then stick a face on your finger, get them to create a character and reuse the language that you've just learnt in that character somehow.
I love that. I mean, I think you're absolutely like for young learners, drawing a little character on their finger, they would love that. I found with teenagers as well, they love taking on different personas
Mm.
and kind of being creative and inventing these
So
characters.
even for
And
FCE, I've done this, right? So even sort of teenagers doing FCE. And because it's this character that might make the errors and not them, they can put, it again, it just sort of reduces that effective filter and all of this, it just makes them brilliant for their FCE speaking practice, isn't it?
Yep,
Well, they have to have
I
both.
love it. I'm going to draw someone on my finger now. He can host the rest of the session for me.
Okay, so just a little summary then about what you can, introduce with this MMM framework. Obviously, we can do vocabulary, grammar, any kind of new concept if you're talking about hypotheticals or something. The manipulate stage would be experimenting, practicing, and exploring. Um, Somehow, as we've said, and then the make it your own stage is being able to use it confidently, meaningfully, and fluently. And again, I just want to focus on that word fluently because I think we forget this one. We're so busy going, oh yeah, we've done the present perfect, we've done this, but they need to get fluent in what they already know or already should know in order to move on and to sound more fluent, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. But do you know what I mean? We forget sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it as well. The idea of repetition and the more exposure they have to the language, the more they use the language, it just becomes more automatic when
Mm,
they have to
yeah,
use it themselves. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it's like getting fluent in what they already know. And again, so that they feel like they've got ownership of the language and they can use it. Um, let's see what we've got next. So as Trey said, I'm sort of moved into teaching or training on CLIL courses and now on EAL, doing EAL. And I was looking at this framework and I thought this is actually very true of content lessons as well. It's not just language, but when you're in chemistry or biology or in a content lesson, you're meeting this new idea, you're meeting this new content, whether it's through demonstrations and videos or just reading or there's visuals or you're doing an experiment, but you're meeting it, or the pupils or students are meeting that content. And and sometimes the teachers don't move into this next bit of where they have to manipulate it. I think that's enough that they just meet it. It's not. They need to make sure that they are doing something with it, whether it's this, start using their higher order thinking skills, I guess, the sorting and classifying, the predicting, the testing it all out, making it a lot more doing something, manipulating. How else can I say it? Working with this content of some sort, um, though it's not just, a presentation. And then doing something with that result. So whether they're then having to do a presentation back about what they've done on their experiments, or they're designing their own tasks, or writing summaries and reflections, or making posters, that something about it so that they've got ownership of that knowledge. They're making it their own, applying their knowledge in these little tasks and projects and explanations, um, so that they can, yeah, leave the classroom feeling like they know it and they're fluent in that content. I think we
And I
can all
think
agree
as
on
well for kind of mainstream teachers that idea of, well, why is chemistry useful for me as a student? I don't want to be a chemist, I want to be a historian or whatever. So making things relatable to their daily life as well, I think,
Yeah.
is really useful.
I think that's really true. And I think it's that personalization, whether it's language or content, showing them how it does affect you, um, in some form or other. And this with the content, this is where you've got a nice bridge between basic communication skills, which is what we call BICS, basic intercommunication skills, where you're just saying, oh, how are you? What's your name? Those basic skills. And CALP, which is your academic language proficiency, where you need that in a subject in order to use it. So you can it's a link, isn't it, from one to the other. When you're doing the make it your own section, you're taking them from the bits of it into the CALP, if that makes sense. Yeah. So where am I? Oh, yeah. Let's go to the next one. So again, how can they meet this new content? Very similar to the language. We've got to make sure that there's a lot of comprehensible input, that they can understand it. Remember Krashen's I+1. There's enough there, plus a little bit more to push them. That they're well supported, so they've got images and tables and diagrams as well as word boxes, things like that. They're also connecting to what they already know. This is really important because whenever you're starting a content, and we know even with language, there's always a starting point of something that they already know, and they've got to connect that in order to learn it or adjust it. They've got, might be right or wrong, whatever, but they've got to do something with it. And then the activities for the manipulation are very similar as well in terms of you need that experimentation and repetition, I mean, doing something. Think about back to your maths lessons where you'd have to do problem solving again and again because each time there's something different and until you can do it without thinking about it. And it's through that manipulation stage where you may need to adapt your previous knowledge that, oh, what I first thought, actually now this is different. But that knowledge of knowing that your knowledge was not correct is also a good thing. That makes sense. Um, okay, and then yes, into the making it your own, so where you've got whether it can explain different concepts and discussions, and again, presentations of something, personalizing it, making sure that they've got this ownership of it. Now, I did say that there's a loop back and it can be used. Let's have a look at this slide. So I've linked the MMM framework and I've got a blog post on this on my website. And I've linked it to multimodal teaching. So as we know, multimodal is kind of the key buzz term that's replacing learning styles, which I think as language teachers, we're very aware of already, but they're only just starting to do this in sort of PGCE. They're just going, oh, we can't use learning styles anymore. It's like, no, we haven't done that for a long time. Anyway, it's making sure that when they're meeting it, that they are exposed to it in multiple different ways, using all of their senses. They're listening and they're reading and they're looking and feeling all of those things. So you can see from there, having all of that multimodal makes the content more accessible so that they can then, oh yeah, understand it. And then they can move into that manipulate of where they're starting to do something. And again, multimodal things with sorting and got some scaffolding of filling in stuff, then doing a variety of tasks. playing some games with it. Don't think games just have to go anywhere. They can go anywhere. Um, okay, so it's all of that processing and noticing. And then again, in your make it your own stage, all of those different visuals and applying it and using all your different modalities, I guess is the word.
And I
Um,
think, oh, sorry, I think that's so important as well because uh, often, particularly when we're working with teenagers, although you do sometimes get it with younger learners as well, that idea of we've already done this.
mhm.
Like if if you have a gap fill, for example, but we did a gap fill with this vocabulary last lesson. So that idea of being more multimodal, I mean, they're still going to realize that they're practicing the past simple again or whatever. But the fact that it's been introduced into different context or through a listening and then through a reading, it
Yeah,
just helps to keep them a little bit more engaged as well, I think.
absolutely. It's got to, and you've got to have as many different ways of doing the same thing in order for them to get it, to make it theirs, to apply it. So I've got that, yeah, applying their knowledge. Now, the loop comes back where either they realize in order to apply their knowledge, they've got some gaps, or the teacher realizes that there are gaps. So maybe when they're doing a presentation or they're writing about something or a performance, um, there are things that they can't say or can't do or haven't quite understood. So the teacher needs to then respond to that, pick it up, and move it into the meat stage in the next lesson. Yeah, so that it can become this nice framework and flow with this responsive loop going from one to the other. So you're responding to the misunderstandings or the knowledge that's not quite right, or and then either revisiting the whole thing or just bits of it, or the bits that they've struggled with, but then you can expand on in the next meet stage. Um, so that's the sort of structure and the framework that I've been working on for teaching in terms of um, language and content. But have you got any more questions on that before I move on to the
No, I mean I love this visual. I think it's, for somebody who's teaching, this right here is just everything that you need to know, like talking about different types of input, talking about different ways that people can manipulate and then personalize the task. Just anyone who's teaching, just have this on your wall and still like take this one and this one and this one lesson and then that one and that one and that one another and keep it dynamic. It's
keep it?
great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you. Great. So so again, thinking about this framework, this meet, manipulate, make it your own, I kind of realized that I did this with my training sessions and and in terms of teacher development. And I think when I say you've been to conferences or webinars and you've met some ideas and strategies and activities, whatever, and you think, oh, I'll use that in my classroom. But you need to do something to it in order to make it work for you. So you've got to adapt it. You've got to experiment. You've got to make it fit your teaching style. You've got to make it fit your learners. You've got to make it fit your situation of where you're working, whether you're in a state school or in a private institute or whatever, your subject, you've got to manipulate it somehow to fit. And by tailoring it to all of the learners and your teachers, things, you make it your own. You keep doing it until it becomes part of your teaching every day, and you don't have to think about it anymore. And I think that's, again, it's becoming fluent, the automaticity of teaching, without having to even plan. You can just go, oh, I'm going to do it like that. And you know that you've ticked off all of these little buttons because you've done it so many times, because that works. Um, I know I just want to share with you. an example. So I'm going to start sharing my screen for a minute. Um, so when I first did my CELTA, which was back in, it wasn't even a CELTA, it was a C TEFLA, back in 95, maybe six. And I had a great tutor called Jean Greenwood, and she wrote primary classroom activities, I think. And she had this activity where we played Uno. Now I love card games and I love games. So we had cards. She'd made cards, and you played Uno. It's like different shapes and colours. So instead of numbers, you've got shapes and colours. So you dish them out and you'd put down a card and say, oh, I've got a pink square. And the next person could say, I've got a yellow square. And then the next one would say, I've got a yellow triangle. Thing. And if you couldn't go, you had to say, I haven't got any. And you pick up, right? Just like Uno. Now I thought that was brilliant. And I started my new job teaching kids, and I thought, right, I'll make all these cards. And as you can see, I've made all these cards. This is 30 odd years ago, and I've still got them. But I was playing with this game. Okay, so I met the game on my Celta, made it up, did it with my students, and then I was like, how useful is this language? How often are my students going to have to say, I've got an orange triangle? Now, the only time you have to say it is when you're playing the game. Yes, you've got the I've got. Yes, we've got colour and objects, so it helps with the word order. You've got your negative, I haven't got any, so they have to pick up. Brilliant. But what if I changed the objects to classroom objects? So I made, again, this is like, these are now 29 years old. So I changed them to classroom objects. So I've got a green pencil sharpener. I've got a red pencil sharpener. And then there's, chairs, rubbers, whatever. Exactly the same. But now they've got a useful language. They've got, so I've manipulated it. I've made it fit my teaching situation exactly. I own this game now so much because I've changed it and done it. I was then, okay, what else? Instead of I've got, we then decided, or I decided, that clothes would be a good thing. So instead of saying I've got when they put a card down, they have to say I'm wearing. So I'm wearing a blue coat. You've gone all upside down. I'm wearing a yellow hat, for example. They wouldn't go on top. If they couldn't go, they have to then say, I'm not wearing anything. And pick up. But you see, you've got the nice negative of and a positive of a present continuous. I'm wearing, you've got the cards which are stimulating that phrase. The students would leave having met the idea of colour, object, manipulated, played with it, done some games with it, and then they've made it their own because they've made that language their own by playing this game. Um, and I've made these cards. But it didn't stop there. I got loads of different, I had ones on travel. So instead of just saying, I've got a blue plane, it'd be, if I had a blue plane, I'd fly to. If I had a blue bike, I'd ride to. So you could see how you can, or you can just say, the, these are blue shoes.
Hmm.
So you can change the language according to what the learner is.
Hmm.
The structure, and it's this is my make it your own stage now, having taken that idea from my CELTA and really manipulated it. And I've got that on my website now. I've got some cards that you can download ready to go with the instructions as well. The
That's
other oh, that you have to show you because I didn't even stop there. Oh,
one of the things I love as well is that you've got the concept of the game, and the game is the same, because I
yes,
think that's sometimes a problem as well, that when we have ideas with our students, it's like, oh, I've got this fantastic game, and sometimes the kind of the game mechanics becomes more important than the
yes,
language. So with
yes.
this one, like, the students know what they need to do, they
Oh,
just have to change what they say.
absolutely, absolutely. And because they're not using normal playing cards because if you had normal playing cards or the Uno cards, they automatically go into their first language because they use those to play it. But having cards that are specially designed just for your English lessons, the trigger will trigger English or the image will trigger English. The instructions for the game is the same, so you can just say it's this structure, this is the language, and you will have done something with it previously anyway in part of the meet and the manipulate stages. You would have got to that. Um, and then I've even got one that's just on prepositions. So because I was like, what other language can I do? So I drew some spiders, and then it's like, oh, there's spiders behind the umbrella. So they had to match the preposition. The spiders behind the skateboard, spiders on the skateboard, spiders under the table, that kind of thing. They're coming soon. That's not on the website just yet, but it will be. But you can see that that's yeah, that was my way of making something my that had been. And if you do that with everything that you meet, what resources?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. I mean, like you say, I think sometimes when we go to conferences as well, we come away and we're just kind of overwhelmed with ideas
Yeah,
sometimes. And there's so many things that we want to try. And actually, maybe just picking one thing and kind of really focusing on it, like you say, trying it out. Does it work? What do I need to change to make it suit my class?
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I just that so I certainly feel like I've got ownership of this. I'm just going to share my screen again. Oops. You want it share. There we go. So I've got the things, MMM, meet it, manipulate it, make it your own. But it can be so many different things. So it's not just about language. It can be content. It can be ideas. It can be concepts. It can be activities. It can be experiences. And it is like it's a philosophy for life, isn't it? You do everything you do, I think, is because you've met the idea from somebody, and if you like it, you might then try and do it again, and you do it again, whatever it is, whether it's a new hobby or something, and you just keep going with it until you've made it your own, and then you want to introduce somebody else to it, that kind of, you know, so this does make me I do get very excited talking about it.
And like you say, I think that's so true. It's what we do in life. But yeah, completely, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a recipe as well, sometimes that you find it and you go, oh, I'll try that, and then you try it again and do something different. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
awesome. I love it.
Or even a place to go, isn't it? Like somebody introduces you to a new bar or a new restaurant, and you go. It's like, oh, first it's like, oh, but then you're like, oh, how can we? Might take different people to make it better. I don't know. And you introduce someone else to it. Anyway, so this little slide is just how do you feel about MMM? Do you help your students with it? And now I'm using it as a verb. Yes. Have you been MMMing with tasks and activities?
I mean, I'm a huge fan. I think that it's great. I think that for as a framework for a lesson, it's really good. And also kind of looking at the bigger picture as
Uh-huh.
well, how learners learn language over the whole process. I think it's so important and particularly that making it your own, like personalization. In fact, I'd probably say I'm great with the beginning M and the last M, but my problem is around manipulating it. I think I worry that students get bored of seeing the same language again, whereas actually
Mm,
what they need to do is have that multimodal approach,
yes.
another couple of M's, and then see it in a lot more different contexts. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. So I think with the teacher development, let's go back a bit. What I've tried to do with my teacher training courses and the sessions that I've got or I'm working on, and there will be on my site as well. I've got one up there at the moment. Um, I like to do a lot of loop input. So it's not just about getting teachers to meet these ideas, but in how you present it as well. And with this EAL course that I've got, the Language Learners Toolkit, the language learning toolkit, um, it's about because it's suitable for whether you're teaching primary in the classroom or if you're teaching a subject or if you're even teaching at university, the ideas that I present on that course are the same. And you'll go, well, how can you do it? How can you do a course like that? And I mean, originally when I first did CLIL courses, it's like teaching the methodology. The methodology is the same, but the teachers have to then manipulate it to what age group they're teaching, to what subject it is, to their teaching, the size of their classrooms and everything. So they've got to manipulate it. So on the training courses, you're meeting the ideas, but then you're given the tasks to help you go and manipulate it so that you can really get familiar with it and make it your own. And I think that's kind of, for me, that's the most important bit, is the fact that we can help you or help teachers make it their own through that manipulation. Yeah.
I mean, I've had a look at the essential strategies for teachers of
Don't
EAL
have to.
learners, and I mean, I don't teach EAL, but there was so much content in there that I was just like, yes, I can use this, and yes, I can see it was really well put together, and I loved there was a whole section about how different theories of language kind of build into it, and I mean, I love a
Mm.
language theory, so yeah, anyone who's not sure, definitely have a look at the course because it was really good, and someone who doesn't teach EAL, and I got a lot from it.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, I think it is a useful just knowing why you do something. So linking things back to the language learning theories, albeit very quickly, it does it gives you the reasons behind doing everything, and the MMM comes in there quite a lot. That's fine. Um, so I'm just going to leave. So in order to support EAL teachers or teachers who've got EAL students, I have I have a YouTube channel which I'm trying to put a video on every week, 2 weeks. It can be difficult, but you can find the links to that through this QR code, as well as I'm posting every day on Instagram with tips and techniques that you can help, and just some interesting facts as well about language learning. So whether you are a language learner teacher or an EAL teacher or CLIL teacher even, um, I think you'll find a lot on there that's quite useful.
Fantastic. And I'll share the links to that in the show notes as well. So
Okay,
anybody who's watching can get easy access. I mean, your YouTube videos are wonderful as well. I love your
thanks.
background as well. I love a background. Um,
I don't like, when you have
a
and it comes
blurred
out.
background.
Yeah, and it just looks, yeah. So I'm like,
Yeah,
no, just
yeah.
it's easy. Oops.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the blurred background, not at all. Um, yes.
We've got the same colours today, so that's kind of good, isn't it?
We're coordinating. Fantastic. Excellent. Well, I mean, Jane, thank you so much for the session. I
Uh,
think, like I said, the MMM framework, it's great that visual that you shared for teachers to, like you say, we don't want to call them learning styles. And I think even the idea of multiple intelligences, people are like, it
mm,
pigeonholes learners. But actually, it's a really good way of allowing students to see language in different ways.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Yep. And I mean, one thing that I find as well with a multimodal approach is that it helps me reflect on the things that I don't do in my lessons. Like, I
yeah,
don't tend to use a lot of music because it's not a big part of who I am. And so, yeah, it's good to kind of reflect on the different ways that you could reach the learners.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It's really important, isn't it? Yeah, no, you make me think about that now. Using this music in my classes.
Fantastic. Awesome. So, do check out Jane's website. You can also follow her on her YouTube channel, Instagram. She's over on LinkedIn and posts frequently there as well. Jane, thank you again so much for taking the time to come and chat to us today.
Yeah.